What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the season 2 premiere of Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal on Adult Swim. Easily one of the coolest animated shows I've been exposed to in years. And I was very late to the party on this. For years, people kept saying, you got to check out Primal, you got to check out Primal. And I'm not a big, dinosaur connoisseur. And for whatever reason, I just kept dragging my heels. But a couple months ago, I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna get caught up. And A, it's a phenomenal show, but B, what I didn't realize is that this is like a primal show that was slowly but surely evolving into like a kick-ass primordial dark fantasy show. And if people had mentioned that there was going to be magic and like civilization and that sort of thing, I probably would have jumped on it much earlier, but I'm glad I did. But Genndy Tartakovsky, if you don't know who he is, he's an absolute legend in the world of animation. He's done big budget movies. He's done a ton of shows. The things that I really like, he did a really cool like Clone Wars animated series back in the early 2000s that I thought was like vastly superior to some of the more kind of like big budget ones that came later. But he was involved in things like Dexter's Laboratory, and he's a jack of all trades. But it seems like with Primal, this is his opportunity to really put his fingerprints, his signature on a story that completely appeals to his tastes and sensibilities. Almost no dialogue of any kind. I mean, the dialogue was minimal in the first season until the very last episode. It's just pure epic visual storytelling. It's dynamic. It has the kind of the personality and the flaws of the hand-drawn illustration and classic cell animation. And I feel like the look of this show is almost like an endangered species in a lot of ways, but he's basically here to show us what you can do with classic animation. And it's action, it's death, it's emotion. It's just fucking awesome. And if people haven't watched it yet, it gets my highest possible recommendation. And I'm not alone in appreciating the show. It's been racking up tons of awards. And I guess if I were to try to pitch the show to the unconverted, I feel like season 1 at least felt like an answer to the question of what would happen if like Robert E. Howard and Jack Kirby had gotten together and made a cartoon together, because this prehistoric flavor very much feels like reminiscent of the stories of Conan that Robert E. Howard used to write. Obviously, Robert E. Howard used more dialogue, but similar kind of philosophy and attitude. But in terms of the action and the way the characters fight and the way they run and the way they move, definitely has that classic 60s era Jack Kirby dynamism. So yeah, it combines the best ingredients of pulp magazines of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, as well as just the gorgeous comic book art of like the truly bonkers 60s. So in a lot of ways, they kind of almost made this in a lab for me. And what really has me excited is some of the imagery we've seen and what's coming later on in season 2. I mean, season 2 got off to a great start, but the image of that kind of like godlike evil figure that was drawn in the sand in the final episode of season 1, that's got me very excited, because it seems more and more like it's drifting into something more like sword and sorcery as opposed to prehistoric man, like I mentioned before. For whatever reason, when I was 6, I was really into prehistoric man and dinosaurs. Now I need spells and swords and gods and demons and all that good stuff. And season 1 gave me a little taste on that front on several occasions, whether you're talking about when Spear drank that potion and basically turned into the Incredible Hulk to fight King Kong, or those creatures that were sacrificing people with all that green fire. I mean, there was some evil, weird shit going on in season 1, or that crazy zombie virus that they encountered. But it was with the introduction of Miri that we realized there was a bigger, grander, like more foreboding world out there of people who worship these strange, malevolent entities and that sort of thing. And I'm very curious to learn more. Sadly, we did not learn anything on that front from these first 2 episodes. But season 2, episode 1 picks up right where season 1 left off, with Miri getting kidnapped. And what precedes is just this fantastic Sea of Despair adventure, which had all the humor and violence and just everything, all the, I guess the spectrum of emotions that we've come to know and love from the show. This first episode had it. And I don't know why. There's something about watching Fang's reactions to Spear that always make me howl. Because Fang makes so few expressions, or it always just kind of remains stagnant, we kind of project onto him what we think he might be thinking. And it was just so goddamn funny watching him getting baited onto this raft and then seeing how outrage he gets as he realizes that there's nothing to drink and there's nothing to eat. And he spends most of the time sleeping, but occasionally he helps push the raft and that sort of thing. But what also makes me crack up is anytime we see Spear or Fang just roaring or growling in frustration at things that are totally beyond their ability to overcome, whether that's a giant wave or a whale singing or whatever the case might be. And I loved all the depressingly futile fishing sequences as Spear is just diving and diving and diving into this endless expanse of blue water. No rocks, no seaweed, no fish, no anything, till finally they have this epic battle with this giant sea turtle, which Fang ends up biting its head off. They get meat, they get shelter, etc., and so forth. And then things just escalate considerably. Like they have this battle with these strange birds who are trying to scoop all these fish out of the air as they're jumping by them. And they have this insane battle with this giant prehistoric shark amidst all these tidal waves. And the shark's like the size of a fucking blue whale, and it would have killed them if not for the fact that there's a little piece of wood stuck in his teeth. And of course, Spear ends up finding it, wedging its mouth open to escape. And then one of the most epic moments of both seasons, the shark's coming out of the water, and Spear like leaps off its nose and hurls that chunk of wood down through its eye. Totally badass, totally worthy of Conan. And the episode ends with them reaching land, and new adventures begin. And in episode 2, we get a little taste of civilization, and I bet some people will bemoan the introduction of civilization and language, how it's creeping into the show, because some people I'm sure respond to just that primal immediacy of season 1, where it's just about running and hunting and fighting and sleeping. But I'm enjoying the introduction of people that can actually speak or use spells and that sort of thing, just because I'm such a fantasy junkie. But we have two kind of, we have an A plot and a B plot where Fang bumps into this red-headed dinosaur. They kind of bond. They go hunting together. They learn to share their food. They're kind of snuggling up and sleeping together. And meanwhile, Spear is being nursed back to health by these people. I don't know if it's body paint or tattoos, but they almost look like, I guess, like Celts or Vikings, whatever the case may be, but prehistoric people, but they can speak, and they're kind of using manure and black magic and things like that in order to nurse his broken arm back to health. He freaks out. He has a big battle where he's fighting one arm with the spear, trying to keep them all at bay. But they finally calm him down. They convince him to let them treat him, and so on and so forth. And so anyway, poop is always funny, and so we got some good poop jokes. But all hell fucking broke loose when the red-headed dinosaur decided it was time to look for breakfast in that village. And so Fang and this dinosaur just start chowing down on people when suddenly Fang is horrified to see his buddy in the camp. And we see Fang really having to face this kind of moral conundrum. I'm assuming he's kind of in love with this other dinosaur, but obviously Spear is his buddy. And he doesn't want either of them to fight each other. You can tell he doesn't really give a fuck about everybody else, but he keeps protecting both the redhead as well as Spear from fighting each other, and just all hell breaks loose. The medicine hut's exploding. And finally, we're in a situation where, in order to protect Spear, Fang pushes the red-headed dinosaur over a cliff, and by accident makes it fall into the spike, which kills it, which obviously it did not mean to do. And at the end of the episode, even though we can't understand the language, you can tell that these savages are inviting Spear to stay with them, and in a very sad, forlorn way, he follows his buddy off into the woods, and the episode is over. So nothing yet in terms of Mira and the people who captured her, how that's going to kind of play into the storyline, but the next few episodes are called Dawn of Man, The Red Mist, and Primal Theory. Then I'm assuming we'll get a big break, followed by episodes 6 through 10. But hopefully they won't keep me waiting for too long before I get some good old-fashioned dark, savage sword and sorcery mayhem, because that's the kind of stuff that really gets my juices flowing. So to everybody out there who's been recommending this show to me over the years, thank you for the recommendation. And I'm sorry it took so long to kind of reach me through my stubborn hard head and convince me to check it out. But yeah, Genndy Tartakovsky, he is an absolute giant of the world of animation, and I hope he continues to make kick-ass animation for many, many years to come. But I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. It's about 1:30 in the morning here in New York, and I am totally wiped out. It's my third video of the day, so hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and if you have any more animation recommendations for me, hunt me down on Twitter at Geeking Out. But I hope everyone has a great weekend. Hope everyone enjoys all the trailers coming out of Comic-Con and all that good stuff. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.